Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the stillness. That is the doorway to the power that moves the stars and spins the earth. In that silence there is a secret, a truth so simple the mind overlooks it, and yet so powerful it reshapes all of life. Give it to God. Stop worrying. He will do the impossible. You were never asked to carry the weight. You were asked to believe. You were never meant to figure out the how, only to know in the deep silence of your being that it is done. That what you have asked for already is, in another dimension, in a higher realm, waiting to crystallize into form. Worry is the child of doubt. It is the conversation of the world that believes it must make everything happen by force, by fear, by frantic movement. But the inner man, the true self, knows better. He knows that imagination is the secret place of the Most High. He knows that what is conceived within is made real without, if only you will not disturb the seed with anxiety. The moment you surrender your desire to God, to the I Am within, you give it life, you hand it over to the part of you that is beyond limitation, beyond effort, beyond the laws of this world. But if you take it back with worry, you halt the process, you dig up the root to see if it's growing. You delay what was already guaranteed. You must learn the art of inner stillness. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and let that feeling become your secret dwelling place. When you walk through your day, walk as though the answer has already come. When you lie down at night, let sleep carry you into the dream where it is already so. Do not try to make it happen. Rest in the knowing that it already has. There is no power outside of you that needs to be convinced. The power is within you, waiting for your surrender. Not surrender in weakness, but surrender in faith. Faith is not hoping, it is knowing. Knowing that what you have imagined is the voice of God speaking through you. Knowing that what you feel in the silence is the seed of your miracle. What men call impossible is only a label placed upon things the senses cannot yet perceive. But the imagination is not bound by sight, nor by time, nor by logic. It sees from the end, it hears the unseen, it moves as spirit moves. Free, fluid, fearless. When you align with that inner world, the outer must conform. It has no choice. It is law. So stop asking when, stop begging, stop repeating the same prayers as though God has not heard. He heard you the first time. The moment the desire rose in you, the answer was born. Now let go, rest, feel it done, and carry yourself with the peace of one who knows that the universe is rearranging itself right now to bring you the impossible. This is not fantasy. This is the truth that sets you free. Give it to God. Then dare to live as though it's already yours, because it is. Do not be deceived by appearances. The world with all its forms and facts is but a reflection of your inner state. It is not causative. It does not move first. What you see and experience is the echo of what you have accepted as true within. And so when you begin to worry, when you pace the floor or rehearse problems in your mind, you are affirming the very reality you wish to change. You are planting the same seed again and again and wondering why it bears the same fruit. There must come a moment when you say enough. I have tried with my effort. I have struggled with my reasoning. I have exhausted my mind searching for a way. And now I turn within. I release this desire, not into the air, not into the hands of fate, but into the spirit that gives life to all things. I give it to God. I give it to that eternal presence within me, the source and sustainer of all creation. When you truly give it to God, you stop asking whether it's working. You stop checking for evidence. The farmer does not dig up the soil each day to see if the seed is sprouting. He trusts the process. He waters. He waits. He knows the nature of the seed. In the same way, your imagination is the womb of creation. When you impress it with the feeling of fulfillment and leave it there in peace, the harvest is certain. The mind that is still and trusting is the mind that commands reality, not by force, not by willpower, but by alignment. The universe responds not to your panic, but to your peace. That inner state is the magnet. What you truly feel to be real becomes your experience, not through toil, but through law. You were not designed to carry burdens, you were designed to create through vision and faith. Worry wears down the mind, clutters the heart, and blinds the eyes to opportunity. But when you release, when you let the I am within take the lead, you move differently, you walk in rest, you speak with confidence, you act not out of desperation, but out of inspired knowing. There is a vast difference between wanting and knowing. Wanting looks outward and sees lack. Knowing turns inward and finds completion. One begs, the other declares. One waits for a sign, the other becomes the sign. You must practice this shift daily, moment by moment, until it becomes your natural state. Until giving it to God is not a one-time act, but a lifestyle of divine partnership. You are not alone. You were never meant to be. That longing in your heart, that picture in your mind, that desire rising again and again, it is not random. It is the voice of God within you, reminding you of what is already yours in the eternal. The desire is the preview of coming fulfillment, but it is yours only when you believe, when you receive it in consciousness, when you assume it without evidence and persist without fear. You must learn to see with the inner eye. Close your eyes and imagine it done. Feel the joy of having, hear the congratulations, the laughter, the peace. Let it saturate your being. Let it become so vivid that when you open your eyes, the outer world feels like the illusion. Then, and only then, does the power move on your behalf. It is not your job to know how it will come. That is the domain of spirit. The how is never your concern. The method, the means, the sequence of events, these belong to a higher order. Your only work is to remain faithful to the end vision, to the feeling of the fulfilled desire. That feeling is the prayer, that assumption is the signal, and when it is strong and unwavering, the impossible becomes inevitable. Many grow weary because they plant the seed and then worry it into stillness. They try to force the tree to grow by shouting at the soil. But this is not the way of divine creation. Divine creation is gentle. It is quiet. It is confident. It knows the law. It knows the promise is sure. So it waits in peace and moves only when moved from within. To give it to God is not a passive act. It is the most powerful choice you can make. It is a declaration of faith in the unseen, a refusal to bow to appearances. It is choosing to believe the report of spirit over the noise of the senses. It is walking into your day as if the doors have already opened, even when they are still closed to the eye. Faith is not blind. Faith sees what the eye cannot. It sees the higher truth. It sees the blueprint before the building, and it rests in that seeing. It trusts that what is real in spirit must become real in form, just as surely as the dawn follows the night. You may say, but I've waited so long. Yes, but have you waited in faith or in fear? Have you rested in the fulfillment or rehearsed the failure? There is a difference. True waiting is active. It is rich with inner experience. It is alive with thanksgiving. It is creative. It prepares the space for what is to come. It rejoices before the blessing arrives, knowing it cannot be denied. Gratitude is the language of trust. When you are truly grateful for what you have not yet seen, you announce to the universe that it is already yours. And that vibration, that frequency, is what draws the outcome to you without delay. Not because you earned it, not because you forced it, but because you aligned. Stop watching the clock. Time is not your master. Spirit is not bound by dates and deadlines. What seems delayed is not denied. It is being perfected. There are things being arranged behind the scenes that you could never calculate. People are being moved, doors are being unlocked, paths are being cleared, all because you dared to believe. If only you could see the machinery of heaven working in your favor, you would never doubt again. You would laugh at fear. You would stand taller. You would speak with greater authority. You would rest not in resignation, but in dominion You are not begging God to do something He has not yet decided. You are agreeing with what He has already spoken. You are stepping into the finished work. The desire was placed in you because its fulfillment already exists in spirit. You are not creating something from nothing. You are revealing what already is. And how do you do that? Through your assumption, through your inner speech, through your faithful imagination. Every time you imagine the end fulfilled, you are fertilizing the seed. Every time you feel it real, you are watering the dream. And every time you give thanks in advance, you are accelerating. This is not wishful thinking, this is the law. This is how creation has always worked. All things begin and end in consciousness. What you accept as true becomes your reality, not because you forced it, but because you believed it. So again I say, give it to God. Hand over the weight, the timeline, the logic, the fear. Let it go. And as you do, feel the shift. Feel the peace return. Feel the inner knowing begin to rise. That is your confirmation. That is your signal. That is the substance of things hoped for. The evidence of things not seen. Do not chase after signs. Do not look to the outer world to validate your faith. Let the outer catch up to the inner. Let the echo follow the sound. If you've spoken it in faith, it must return fulfilled. That is the promise. That is the covenant. When the worry rises, remind yourself, I've given it to God. I placed it in the safest, surest hands, and because of that I will not fear. I will not doubt. I will not rehearse the problem. I will rehearse the promise. I will rehearse the end. I will live from the outcome, and I will move through my day with the confidence of one who knows the impossible is already becoming possible. Not someday, now, not when all the conditions line up, but because I have aligned within. This is the great secret. Give it to God. Let it go. Assume it done. And watch. Watch as the unseen becomes seen, as the divine answers before you even finish the prayer, as the impossible bends its knee before the power of your faith. You say, but I don't feel it. Then sit with it longer. Dwell in the scene until it becomes more real to you than what your senses report. Reality is not what the eyes see. It is what the spirit accepts. And if you can accept your desire as already fulfilled, then you have touched the mind of God. You have entered the creative state. And in that state, all things are possible. This is the ease you were made for. This is the grace that flows from true surrender. Giving it to God is not the same as forgetting about it. It is remembering, but remembering rightly. It is holding the end in your heart without needing to manage the middle. It is saying, I see the finished work, I live in it, I celebrate it, and I trust the divine intelligence within me to orchestrate all the details. You will know you've truly let go when peace becomes your atmosphere, when joy begins to bubble up for no apparent reason, when your inner world grows louder than the noise of your circumstances. That is the evidence of faith. That is the birth of the miracle. The world will try to convince you that you must fight, hustle, worry, and strain, but that is the path of the natural man, bound to the senses. The spiritual man creates differently. He speaks what is not as though it is. He calls the invisible into form through belief. He uses imagination as his instrument and trust as his foundation. If only you could understand what has already been prepared for you. If only you could comprehend that what you long for exists now, fully formed in another dimension of being. And the only bridge from there to here is belief. Not blind belief, but active, living belief. A belief that shows up in how you speak, how you walk, how you think, how you rest. What you do in the silence matters more than what you do in the crowd. What you entertain in the privacy of your heart is the blueprint for what will appear in your life. You cannot hide your dominant state. Life will reflect it back to you again and again until you choose differently. Until you choose to align, to harmonize, to trust. And trust is not timid, it is bold. It acts before the evidence. It sows before the season. It builds the ark before the rain. To trust God is to stop playing small, to stop shrinking your vision to match your bank account or your background, to stop measuring possibility by history or statistics. The power in you does not answer to numbers. It answers to faith. You are not waiting for God. God is waiting for you to believe, to stop circling the same doubt, to stop speaking against your own prayer, to stop looking for signs of failure when all you need to do is declare success, to stop watering the weeds with worry and start watering the promise with praise. Praise is the song of those who have already received in the Spirit. It is the melody of those who see what the eye cannot. It confuses the logic of man but unlocks the vault of heaven. Praise, even before the manifestation, is one of the highest demonstrations of trust. When you praise, you lift your vibration. You rise into alignment with the thing desired, and from that height, miracles rush toward you with unstoppable momentum. The one who has given it to God does not need constant reassurance. He does not beg. He does not pace the floor. He builds a nursery before the child comes. He sets the table before the guests arrive. He prepares in faith, because preparation is the clearest signal that you believe the answer is on its way. God cannot lie. The I am within you cannot be mocked. It brings forth what is spoken, what is imagined, what is emotionally accepted as true. So when you say, I am whole, and you feel it, it becomes flesh. When you say, I am provided for, and you carry that knowing with you, the supply appears. When you say, it is done, and you mean it, the you speak life, speak truth, speak only what you desire to see. And then walk away, not in indifference, but in confidence, like a master artist who lays down his brush, knowing the work is finished, like a composer who hears the music in his soul before a single note is played. This is the posture of the awakened soul. Let the world call it delusion, let others scoff. You need no agreement but your own. You need no permission to believe. You stand on holy ground when you trust the vision God has written upon your heart. The world may say impossible, but the law says inevitable. For what you see within must echo without. You may be tempted to doubt, to second guess, to check again. That is the old way. That is the path of those who live by sight. But you live by faith. You close your eyes and see the end. You hold that image with reverence. You let it fill your lungs, your bones, your very cells. You let it guide your steps, fuel your words, shape your thoughts. And in doing so, you become the miracle you once hoped for. Do not fear the silence. That is where the greatest work is done, in the hidden place, in the unseen realm. Beneath the surface, roots are growing, plans are forming, alignments are taking place, and all the while your only task is to stay faithful, to keep your inner altar lit with praise and expectation, to let the outer catch up to the inner, to stop asking when and start saying thank you. Thank you not because it's coming, thank you because it's done. Thank you because it is settled in spirit. Thank you because the word has gone forth and cannot return void. Thank you because the impossible has already bowed to the name you carry. Give it to God and don't take it back. Not with anxious thoughts, not with controlling behavior, not with fear disguised as planning. Leave it where it belongs, in the hands of the Creator who knows no limitation, no impossibility, no lack. And walk away with the likeness of one who knows the ending has already been written. That is the secret, that is the law, that is the key that opens every door. Give it to God, stop worrying, He will do the impossible. Because the impossible has no power against faith, because your assumption is creative, because your vision is divine, because your belief is the bridge that carries heaven to earth. There are those who believe that in order to receive, they must prove themselves worthy through effort, through penance, through constant striving. But the truth is far more radical, far more liberating. Worthiness was never the question. You were worthy the moment the desire was born in you, not because of what you've done or failed to do, but because of what you are. You are the vessel of the divine imagination. You are the dreamer through whom God sees. You do not need to convince God to move on your behalf. He has already moved. The moment you felt the desire, the answer was given. The moment you saw it in your mind's eye, it was complete in the invisible. It is done, final, finished. And now your only work is to align your thoughts, your emotions, your entire inner world with that unseen reality. That is what it means to live by faith. Not to hope faintly for a thing, but to know it, to assume it, to embody it. There is nothing more powerful than an individual who has chosen to live from the end. One who no longer asks, will it happen, but says instead, it has happened, and I'm simply walking into the evidence of it. That one cannot be shaken. That one cannot be dissuaded by delay, for they no longer see time as a threat. They understand that what is held faithfully in imagination must come, and that time is simply the servant of belief, not its master. You are the doorway through which the unseen becomes seen. The infinite seeks to express through you, not around you. But it can only do so to the extent that you allow it, not by pleading, but by yielding, not by worrying, but by receiving. And receiving is not passive, it is active in the realm of consciousness. It is choosing again and again to think only from the place where your desire is already fulfilled. Do not say, I'll believe it when I see it. Say, I believe it, therefore I will see it. The world has trained you to look outside for validation, but the Spirit speaks in reverse. It begins in the inner chambers of thought and feeling. That is the true cause. The outer is merely the shadow, the echo, the outpicturing of what you have already accepted within. You may say, but how do I know it will happen? You know it the same way you know you are alive. You feel it, you sense it in the stillness, you catch the rhythm of it like a familiar song returning to your memory. And once that song is playing within, you do not ask again. You hum it as you move through your day. You live with the melody in your bones. There is no striving in God's way. There is only surrender. But surrender is not defeat. It is power. It is the most confident stance a human being can take, to say, I no longer need to make this happen. I rest in the knowing that it is. This is the mind of a creator. This is the heart of one who walks with God. Fear whispers, it's too big. Faith replies, it is already done. Doubt says, you've never seen anything like this before. But the Spirit answers, it doesn't matter. I see it now in the inner realm, and that is all that is required. Every great act of creation began this way, with a vision, a declaration, and a refusal to yield to what appeared to be true. What appears is not always what is. The senses report a temporary version of reality, but what you hold in imagination is eternal. It does not fade, it does not change, it awaits only your consistency. Every time you feel the desire as though it were fulfilled, you are feeding the roots beneath the surface. Every time you return to that inner scene, you are watering the invisible, and soon the outer must comply. It cannot resist the force of a sustained inner knowing. This is not a trick. It is not magic, it is law. The same law that governs the sunrise, the seasons, the orbits of the planets. It is the law that what you assume to be true becomes fact. Not immediately, but inevitably. And in that inevitability, you must learn to rest. To rest does not mean to be inactive. It means to be anchored. It means to move only when moved by inspiration. It means to walk forward, not in frantic motion, but in quiet certainty. And that certainty carries with it a frequency that changes rooms, opens doors, and stirs unseen forces into action. There is nothing too hard for God, and if God is within you, then there is nothing too hard for you, when you align with that truth. The only thing standing in your way is the thought that something is in your way, and once that thought is dropped, the mountain crumbles. You are not here to struggle and survive. You are here to create, to imagine, to embody the desires of your heart until they take on flesh. And how do you do this? By becoming the version of you who already has it. Not someday, now. How does that version think, speak, act, walk? You must take on the role completely, as though you were an actor stepping into a part, not pretending, but being. You cannot hold two identities at once. You must release the old before the new can take hold. You must say goodbye to the version of you that worries, doubts, and fears. That version cannot walk into the promised land. Only the one who has rested in the finished work can pass through. Only the one who has released the outcome and taken on the state of the answer can see the answer unfold. The moment you stop rehearsing the problem and start rehearsing the solution, everything begins to shift. Your posture changes, your language changes, your decisions align with the new timeline, people respond to you differently, doors you didn't even knock on begin to swing open, not because you forced it, but because you became it. This is the mystery hidden from the ages, that the kingdom of heaven is within you, not above, not beyond, not later, but within. And when you enter that kingdom through your imagination, when you dwell there consistently, when you feel at home in the reality of your fulfilled desire, then the world outside has no choice but to conform. Your job is not to push the river, your job is to remove the dam, to clear away the mental and emotional blocks that say it can't happen, to dismantle the inner argument that keeps replaying lack, delay, or impossibility. You don't need to move the mountain. You need only to stop believing in the mountain. Everything you want is already here, vibrating at a frequency that you must attune to. You tune into it by feeling it real, by praising in advance, by assuming it until it becomes so natural that the old story no longer even tempts you. You are not being tested, you are being invited to trust in a higher way, invited to participate in the divine order, invited to surrender your effort and accept grace. But grace does not operate in worry. It moves freely only when the vessel is open. Open through faith, through gratitude, through surrender. There is no limit to what can happen when you live from the end. Healing can appear in a moment. Finances can shift overnight. Relationships can be restored without a single conversation. The impossible becomes possible, not by external force, but by internal certainty. The world cannot stop the one who walks in alignment, for that one is not reacting to life but creating it. That one does not seek signs because he is the sign. That one does not ask for proof because she is the evidence. That one does not delay in fear but moves in boldness, trusting the unseen more than the seen. And all of this becomes available the moment you truly give it to God, not in word alone, but in spirit and in truth. When you stop arguing for your limitations, when you stop rehearsing the old facts, when you stop clinging to how and when, and you simply know that it is done, then the whole universe begins to bend in your favor. Do not underestimate the power of one quiet, determined soul who has made a decision. It is mine. I have received it. I will live as though it were so. That one becomes unstoppable. That one begins to draw the right people, opportunities, and resources, not by chasing them, but by embodying the outcome. So return again to that secret place within. Return as often as it takes, not to wish, but to feel. Not to beg, but to know. Not to wait, but to walk in it. Let the old self fall away with every breath. Let the new state be your identity. Speak from it, move from it, live from it. And above all, refuse to worry. Worry is the admission that you have taken back what you gave to God. It is the sign that you no longer trust the process. But you were not made to worry. You were made to believe. You were not designed to chase, you were designed to attract. You were not placed here to merely survive. You were placed here to create, to expand, to overflow with the goodness of the unseen made visible. So, give it to God and leave it with Him. Rest in the knowing, dwell in the vision, walk in the end, feel the reality of it. Speak only from the place of fulfillment and watch. The impossible will bow to your faith, not because you forced it, but because you believed. It begins in the stillness, always in the stillness, not in the noise of the world or in the frantic search for solutions, but in that quiet space within where the whisper of the divine can finally be heard. That is where creation begins. That is where the impossible becomes not only possible but promised. And in that space, you are reminded again, it is not your burden to carry. It is not your battle to fight. Give it to God and then really give it. Don't leave it on the altar only to pick it up again in the next moment with anxious thoughts and fearful words. When you truly release it, when you fully surrender the desire into the hands of the one who gave it to you in the first place, something shifts. The weight lifts, the tension breaks. A strange, unfamiliar peace rises in you. That peace is the evidence. That peace is the confirmation that creation is underway, not outside of you, but within you and through you. You must understand that God does not withhold. The divine is not keeping good things from you to teach you a lesson or to test your patience. The only delays are within your own consciousness. The only obstacles are the ones you have agreed to believe in. When you stop rehearsing your doubts and begin rehearsing the promise, you begin to see clearly. You begin to move differently. There is a divine order that responds to your state of being. Not your wish, not your need, but your state. What are you embodying? What do you carry in your inner world, moment to moment? That is what matters. That is what shapes your life, more than all the prayers you speak aloud, more than all the actions you take in desperation. The state you live in is the magnet of your reality. If you say, I believe, but inwardly still feel panic, fear, or lack, the world will echo the truth of your inner contradiction. But when your inner world becomes fully persuaded, when your imagination and your emotions are aligned in the fulfillment of your desire, then nothing can stand in the way. Creation has already happened, and the outer world must catch up. This is not about positive thinking. This is about spiritual law, the law that says you cannot experience anything in the outer world that you have not first entertained in the inner one. So ask yourself, not what do I want, but what am I accepting as real? Am I walking in the world as if the answer has already come? Am I carrying myself with the calm confidence of one who knows the outcome is guaranteed? To give it to God is to step out of the realm of manipulation and control. It is to stop trying to force, bargain, and scheme. It is to stop praying out of fear and start creating out of faith. It is to speak not with pleading, but with the quiet authority of one who knows that God lives in them, not separate or distant, but present, active, immediate. If you knew that the very Spirit of the Almighty was forming your reality through every thought and feeling you hold, how carefully would you think? How consciously would you feel? You would no longer permit worry to linger. You would no longer allow doubt to have a voice. You would become fiercely protective of your inner world, not from fear, but from reverence. This is the discipline of faith. It is not passive, it is not idle, it is a sacred tending to the fire within. It is choosing again and again to come back to the vision, to see it, feel it, live in it, not just once a day, but continually, until it becomes your new dwelling place, until the state of fulfillment is so normal to you that the old self, the old story, the old fear no longer feel like home. You cannot receive something new while clinging to the identity of the one who lacks it. The version of you who lives in lack cannot enter the life of abundance. The version of you who worries cannot inherit the peace that passes understanding. The version of you who keeps looking to the problem cannot see the solution standing right in front of them. So the shift must happen inside. You must become it before you see it. You must walk as the healed before the healing is visible. You must speak as the successful before the success arrives. You must feel as the loved before the relationship appears. And when you do, life reorganizes itself to meet you where you are. The world is not your enemy. It is not resisting you. It is responding to you. It is mirroring back to you the assumptions you hold, the stories you believe, the identity you inhabit. Change the root and the fruit must change. That is the promise. That is the process. That is the peace that comes when you finally let go of the fight and let God be God. And yet, letting go is not laziness. It is not passivity. It is fierce trust. It is deep alignment. It is radical faith that says, even though I cannot see it, I know it is working for me. Even though the evidence hasn't yet shown itself, I rejoice now because I have received it in spirit. That joy is not optional. It is the vibration that matches your answered prayer. Worry never accomplishes anything. It only repeats the past in the disguise of a future. It plays the same movie over and over again, expecting a different ending. But when you shift into trust, you begin a new script. You flip the page. You turn the light on. And that light reveals what has been waiting for you all along. Everything you've ever asked for is already finished in God. You are not waiting on Him. He is waiting on you to believe, to receive, to allow. The delay is not a denial. It is a doorway. A sacred pause for you to align with the truth that the thing you seek is already yours. And once you are in agreement with that truth, you will find yourself in the flow. Things will begin to happen without your effort. Doors will open without your knocking. Opportunities will rise like the tide, effortless, graceful, divine. But it starts with a decision, a simple, profound decision to let it go, to stop treating God like a faraway force that must be bargained with, to stop treating your desire like something impossible, to stop treating your imagination like a child's game, and start recognizing it for what it truly is, the place where God speaks. Your imagination is the language of spirit. It is the divine tool of creation. It is not fantasy, it is prophecy. What you dwell on within, you will dwell in without. So honor it, use it, return to it with reverence, build the inner temple until it feels more real than the outer world. And when that happens, when you can walk through your day with that image clear in your heart and that peace strong in your chest, the manifestation will be inevitable. It cannot not come. That is how law works. It cannot fail because it was never dependent on the world. It was never dependent on who approves of you or who doubts you or how things look today. It was only ever dependent on what you believe, what you truly, deeply, unwaveringly believe. So, don't check the clock. Don't ask how long. That question belongs to the old self. That question is rooted in fear. The new you does not ask when. The new you lives in now. Now it is done. Now it is mine. Now I walk as one who has received, and that walk will carry you right into the reality you once only imagined. Give it to God. Speak the end. Feel the joy. Live from the vision. And every morning you wake, return to that truth like a song. It is done. It is done. It is done. Let that be your rhythm, your breath, your certainty. And in time, perhaps sooner than you ever expected, the world will rise to meet your inner decree. What was once a prayer will become your present. What was once a hope will become your history. What was once impossible will stand before you as the natural result of spiritual law, all because you gave it to God and you believed. So now, stand firm, not in striving, but in stillness. Let your soul rest in the truth you've claimed. What you have seen within is already yours. What you have surrendered, God has already answered. And what you carry now in faith will soon clothe itself in form. Do not return to fear. Do not rehearse the old doubts. Simply remain anchored, expectant, full of quiet joy. For you have given it to God, and that means it is finished. The impossible is unfolding, the unseen is becoming seen, and your only task now is to walk forward as if it were already done, because it is. Close your eyes for a moment and realize this. You have never walked alone, not once. Not in the dead of night, not in the moments when fear crawled up your spine, not when your heart broke silently in the corner of a crowded room. The very presence of God that you cannot see is the same presence that surrounds you, shields you, and lifts you, whether your eyes are open or closed, whether your heart is heavy or light. Angels, those ministering spirits, are not figments of poetic tradition. They are real. They move at the speed of thought. They respond to the vibration of faith, and they guard you the unnoticeable, the untraceable, the unwitchable, the untraceable. There are moments when you hesitated for no reason and were saved from a disaster. That pause, that whisper, that subtle change of mind, it was not random. It was the invisible protection of God manifesting through unseen forces that act on your behalf. There is no chaos too dark, no danger too close that these messengers cannot navigate. They move before your footsteps and prepare the ground. They do not speak to your ears, they speak to your knowing. They plant thoughts, nudge feelings, stir awareness, and while you think it was merely a coincidence, they've orchestrated a divine intervention. Everything in your life that has worked out mysteriously, unexpectedly, or unexplainably in your favor has been a signature of their involvement. You thought you were late and avoided the collision. You thought you were rejected but were being redirected. You thought the deal fell through, but it was God's angels closing the wrong doors so the right ones could open. You were not abandoned, you were escorted by hands unseen. They operate under the authority of divine law, not human reasoning. They do not wait for your sight, they act upon your faith. And whether you're aware of it or not, faith is not what you say with your lips, it is the state you dwell in. If you live from fear, you miss the frequency. If you live from trust, they are already dispatched. The entire unseen realm operates on alignment, not pleading. It answers to assumption, not desperation. You are surrounded by legions, not one or two, legions, assigned not just to your body but to your destiny. They war not only for your safety, but for your purpose. There are angels that protect your path, and there are angels that protect your peace. Some will stand between you and danger, others will stand between you and self-sabotage. And you do not need to summon them like a beggar. You simply must remember that they are there. Because the secret is not in commanding angels, it is in walking as if they already walk with you. When you step forward with that inner confidence, that silent authority that says, I am not alone, everything around you begins to respond differently. People sense something on you. Circumstances bend to your favor. Opportunities find you before you seek them. That is the evidence, that is the echo of divine protection. You cannot see the wind, but you see the trees move. You cannot see the angels, but you see the course of your life shifting. When you choose peace instead of panic, that's their presence. When you feel courage you cannot explain, that's their intervention. When you are held back from what you wanted, but preserved for what you needed, that's their orchestration. The mind conditioned by the world will miss it, explain it away, call it chance. But the awakened mind recognizes the signs. It understands that the higher you dwell in thought, the more visible their work becomes. Not because they start working then, but because you finally start seeing clearly. You must walk through your days not trying to summon protection, but assuming protection. You do not need to ask, are they with me? You need to live from, they never left. Even when you were at your lowest, they stood over you. Even when you cursed your path, they cleared it. Even when you doubted your worth, they stood in place, because God's command over your life had not changed. Do you understand the weight of that? That even your unbelief could not send them away, that even your fear could not cancel their assignment. That means their loyalty is not based on your feelings, it's based on your divine design. There is a realm beyond your senses, operating every moment of your life, moving in perfect order. What feels like silence is strategy. What feels like delay is divine timing. What feels like isolation is preservation. You are guarded in traffic, in dreams, in sleep. You are shielded in conversations you never hear, protected from attacks you never feel, delivered from disasters you never witness, and still you doubt, still you wait for evidence. But you do not need signs to walk by faith. You need faith to see the signs. And when you decide to shift from waiting for proof to living in knowing, the invisible begins to flood the visible. That's when miracles feel natural. That's when peace becomes your baseline. That's when the unshakable calm takes over, not because trouble vanished, but because truth took root. You are more protected than you know, because protection is not what surrounds your body, it's what surrounds your belief. The angels of God answer to your consciousness, not your complaints. And when you raise your consciousness to match your divine identity, they do not need permission, they receive direction. Now walk, not as if you're vulnerable. Walk as if you're invisible to harm, because your faith has made you untouchable by fear. Walk as if every step you take is cleared before you. Walk as if there are hands guiding you, light leading you, and power backing you, not because you hope it's true, but because it already is. And as you walk through the world with this knowing, things begin to change, subtly at first, then unmistakably. You'll notice the way certain people no longer cross your path, the way closed doors never reopen, the way strange delays turn into divine redirections. But even more than that, you will notice something within you shift, a quiet certainty, a holy confidence, a stillness that doesn't need external validation to believe it is protected. That is not delusion, that is divine awareness. You see, angels are not bound by your schedule or limited to your logic. They do not wait for your plan, they follow God's. Their role is not to entertain you, but to escort you into destiny. And while you may never see them with your eyes, you will see the results of their presence with your life. When you nearly fell but didn't, when you should have broken but healed, when everything said it should have been over, but somehow you rose again. That is the language of the unseen. That is the trail they leave behind, quiet footprints across the landscape of your becoming. You think the breakthrough was a coincidence. You think the peace you suddenly felt was just your mind calming down. You think the opportunity that landed in your lap was luck. But all along it was them, ministering spirits responding to the call that your soul didn't even know it had made. That's the mystery. That you don't have to consciously summon help to be helped. That the very nature of divine protection is proactive, not reactive. It does not wait for the disaster to strike. It goes ahead of time and disarms the trap. You might have walked into the lion's den unaware, but they shut the mouths before you stepped in. You might have been surrounded by betrayal, but they concealed your heart from the sting of it. You might have been on the edge of a decision that would derail your future, but they whispered just enough wisdom to make you pause, and you thought you just changed your mind. But you didn't. You were intercepted, redirected, saved. There is something sacred in the delays you resent, something holy in the things that didn't work out, because often divine protection looks like divine prevention. God's angels don't always fight battles. They sometimes just keep you from entering them. The job you lost, the relationship that ended, the plan that fell through, it wasn't failure. It was a firewall, a barrier built by unseen hands because they saw what you could not. And one day, in hindsight, you will weep with gratitude for the no you once cried over. And yet your only task is to assume the presence, to walk as though you are not alone, even when you feel like you are, to know that in every unseen dimension there are forces moving in synchronized harmony on your behalf. And they don't need you to beg, they need you to believe. That is the code of the invisible. That is the frequency that activates the divine. Faith is not about feeling brave. It's about dwelling in the state of being guarded, chosen, favored, regardless of evidence. That's why it's powerful, because it defies what's seen. It roots itself not in circumstances, but in consciousness. The one who believes they are protected becomes invincible, not because the world changes, but because their perception does. And in that shift, everything bends. You become unbothered by what others fear. You become undisturbed by what others panic over. Because while they look around for signs, you look within. While they seek validation from the world, you draw power from the unseen realm. And in that space, angels rush to obey the state of your spirit. They encamp around those who walk in that posture, not a posture of pride, but of presence, a sacred stillness, a holy certainty. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to shout or strive. You just need to dwell in that knowing, and it becomes your shield. Protection is not only about safety, it's about preservation, it's about alignment, it's about preparing you not just to survive, but to fulfill the assignment that was placed on your life before you were ever aware. Angels are not there to make you comfortable. They are there to make you unstoppable. And for that to happen, sometimes they must tear down what you've built in fear, so that only what was built in faith remains. They will remove the counterfeit before the real thing appears. They will allow the storms to come, not to destroy you, but to reveal the foundation you've stood on. And when the dust clears, you'll see what lasted, and you'll know it wasn't by your strength. You will understand then that you were carried more times than you walked. You were held up by forces you never thanked. You were delivered from traps you never saw. Because the angels did not need applause. They only needed access. And your faith gave it to them. Every time you resist panic, every time you choose peace over fear, every time you affirm that all is well, even when the world says otherwise, you extend that access. You align yourself with the divine pattern. You come into agreement with heaven's rhythm. And that agreement becomes a highway for miracles, for interventions, for outcomes that defy logic. You will begin to notice it more and more, the sudden clarity in confusion, the stranger who says the exact words you needed to hear, the opportunity that arrives just after you gave up, the breakthrough that wasn't supposed to happen. These are not accidents. They are the fingerprints of God's messengers. They operate in perfect silence, yet their work is thunderous. They move with invisibility, yet their impact shakes everything. And still, most do not see. They keep waiting for flashing lights, for wings and halos. But that's not how the divine reveals itself. It comes as a still small voice, as a nudge, a pause, a door that closes before it harms you. It moves in whispers, in synchronicities, in gut feelings that guide you without explanation. That is the way of the angels. So train yourself to see differently. Train your spirit to detect the shift before it happens. Let your soul become so tuned to divine presence that you no longer need a miracle to believe. You become the miracle. Let your life become so rooted in trust that you no longer chase protection. You walk as if it is your shadow. And when fear comes, not if but when, because it will, stand still and remember, fear is not the absence of angels. It is the absence of awareness. They are still there, even in the valley, even in the midnight hour, even in the heartbreak and the loss and the silence. They are there, not just holding back danger, but holding you together. And when you can rest in that, you no longer need to fight every battle. You only need to stand. Because there is nothing more powerful than a soul who walks in the quiet confidence of being watched over, not watched to be judged, but watched to be preserved. And when you walk in that reality, you stop reacting to the chaos around you. You start radiating the calm that comes from within. The calm that says, I am not alone. I am covered. I am chosen. And because I know that, I cannot be shaken. Even when the winds rise, even when the road twists, even when the world trembles, I remain. because I do not stand in my own strength. I stand in the alignment of God's design. And with that design come protectors, guides, guardians, not seen, but always felt. Keep walking as if they walk with you, because they do. Keep choosing trust even when your eyes see nothing, because the unseen has already moved. Keep aligning with the truth that you are surrounded by divine intelligence that knows your path better than you ever could. And let that truth free you, not just from fear, but from striving, from chasing, from overthinking. You are not fragile, you are not exposed, you are not at the mercy of this world. You are sealed in favor, you are escorted by the unseen. And when you finally believe that, not just in word but in state, you will become untouchable in spirit, unstoppable in purpose, and unshakable in peace. And now that you understand this, now that this awareness begins to settle not just in your intellect but in your spirit, you'll begin to live differently. You'll no longer waste energy explaining your peace to others who can't see what surrounds you. You'll no longer defend the calm that seems irrational to the fearful, because you know something they don't. You know you are backed by the invisible. You know that your stillness is not weakness, it is divine trust, and in that trust, angels move freely. Not because you strive, but because you allow. You do not have to strive to be kept. You are already kept. You do not have to earn protection. It is inherent in your divine nature. Your only role is to surrender to that truth, to rest in it, to let it carry you when your mind cannot. And in that rest, strength multiplies, courage multiplies, discernment sharpens. You begin to recognize moments not as random, but as orchestrated. You begin to walk with a prophetic sense of timing, knowing when to speak and when to be silent, when to move and when to wait. And that knowing, it is not yours alone. It is the whisper of the eternal echoed through the presence of angels. They do not make noise, but they make history. They do not draw attention, but they shift atmospheres. And if you have ever walked into a room and felt a sudden peace or a sudden warning, it was not your imagination. It was your sensitivity to their nearness. They don't need to be seen to be active. They only need to be acknowledged inwardly, honored not with ritual but with recognition. When you recognize their presence, you align with it. And once aligned, you walk in divine rhythm. In divine rhythm, things begin to align without effort. Delays lose their sting, interruptions lose their offense. You begin to understand that everything is moved by a higher order, that even what seemed unfair was arranged for your ascension, that even what felt like rejection was really protection. And protection, when understood spiritually, no longer looks like insulation from difficulty, it looks like revelation through it. You may walk through fire, but the flames will not burn you, because angels do not always deliver you from the storm, they deliver you through it. Sometimes their role is not to stop the storm, but to ensure you don't drown. Sometimes their purpose is not to remove the thorn, but to give you strength to walk with it without pain. You become stronger, not because the world gets easier, but because you begin to see everything differently. You begin to see everything spiritually. And the more spiritually you see, the more you begin to trust that the seen world is the shadow and the unseen world is the source. You are not here by accident. You are not being tested for punishment. You are being refined for purpose. And the angels assigned to your life are not part of a myth. They are part of your mandate. They do not appear to impress you. They operate to elevate you, to escort you into becoming what you are already designed to be. They do not follow you because of your performance. They follow you because of your position, a position you hold in divine intention. You are not ordinary. You are not exposed. You are encoded with the blueprint of heaven, and that blueprint is protected at all costs. That means when the enemy tries to sabotage your identity, angels intervene. When fear tries to dim your light, angels reignite. When darkness tries to drown your voice, angels lift you back into remembrance. You are not guarded only in body, you are guarded in essence, in destiny, in purpose. And when you forget, they remember. When you sleep, they stay alert. When you wander, they whisper the way back. Your spirit knows this truth even when your mind forgets. That is why some of your breakthroughs came not when you understood more, but when you finally let go. Because surrender is the doorway through which the divine flows. When you stop trying to force it and start trusting what is already at work, heaven's strategy unfolds. Not always fast, not always loud, but always right on time. Always perfectly placed, always layered with wisdom beyond your comprehension. Some of your greatest protections came dressed as disappointment. Some of your greatest blessings came through broken doors. And now, as your eyes are open to the pattern, you begin to give thanks not just for what happened, but for what didn't. You give thanks for the car that didn't start that morning, for the person who never called back, for the opportunity that slipped through your hands, because now you know there was another hand holding you the whole time. And it was not idle, it was intentional. This awareness shifts your inner posture. You no longer wake up bracing for the worst, you rise expecting alignment. You no longer go to sleep with anxiety about tomorrow, you rest, knowing that angels will minister to your spirit even as you dream. You no longer try to convince yourself of safety, you begin to embody it. You move differently, you speak differently, you decide differently. Because you no longer move from fear, you move from faith. And that movement is magnetic to the invisible realm. The more you live from that place, the more divine coincidences begin to cluster around you. You start meeting the right people at the right time. You start hearing the right words at the exact moment you need them. You start finding yourself at crossroads that lead to destiny, not destruction. And the world calls it chance, but your spirit knows better. Your spirit remembers the promise. He gives his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. But ways here means more than paths. It means your becoming, your shifts, your transitions, your inner evolution. They are charged with watching over every version of you on the way to the fulfillment of your purpose, even the version that doubted, even the version that broke, even the version that forgot who you were. They stayed, because your design was never in question, because your value was never revoked. This knowing turns your walk into a declaration. You no longer whisper prayers of desperation. You walk as the embodiment of answered prayer. You carry a quiet authority. You speak less but impact more. You react less but discern more. You fear less but expect more. Because now you don't wait for the miraculous. You realize it is your natural habitat. The protection you seek is not something to chase, it is something to awaken within. And when you awaken to it, the atmosphere around you changes. Your home becomes more peaceful, your mind becomes more still, your body begins to heal, your relationships begin to recalibrate, not because you did more, but because you remembered who you are and who is assigned to you. You become immune to manipulation. You become free from anxiety, because now you are ruled not by circumstance, but by awareness. And that awareness activates everything. The angels who stand around you are not waiting for your performance. They are waiting for your permission. And permission is not given with lips. It is given by alignment. By choosing to live from the truth of your divine safety rather than the illusion of human vulnerability. Nothing has changed except your awareness, and yet everything changes because of it. That is the mystery, that is the majesty, that as you shift within, the world around you conforms, that as you see yourself differently, the invisible realm responds, that as you dwell in the knowing of divine protection reveals itself more clearly. And the more you stay in that state, the more permanent it becomes, not a fleeting feeling, but a foundation. A way of being, a spiritual posture that doesn't change with circumstances. You begin to understand that protection is not just a one-time rescue, but a continuous reality. It is not about being spared from all hardship, but being sustained through all things. It is the assurance that no matter where you are, who you are with or what is happening around you, something greater is surrounding you, watching over you, guiding you. And when you make decisions from that knowing, your life begins to reflect that invisible shield. You stop second-guessing every move, because you trust that even if you choose wrong, the divine will reroute you. You stop fearing loss, because you realize nothing real can be taken from you, only illusions fall away. You stop waiting for people to confirm your path, because angels confirm it daily with synchronicity, peace, and divine timing. That's how you begin to live, not needing permission from the world, because you've already been appointed by heaven. This is not arrogance, it is reverence. It is humility in its purest form, knowing that it's not your might, not your intellect, not your hustle that holds your life together. It is the orchestration of a higher power, working with agents unseen, responding to the vibration of your inner world. Every time you choose peace over panic, stillness over striving, belief over doubt, you speak the language of heaven. You allow the divine agents to act freely, unbound by your resistance. Most people wonder why they feel stuck, but do not realize they've locked the door from the inside with fear. They've made worry their baseline and wonder why miracles feel delayed. They plead for signs while living in states of contradiction. But the angels respond not to words. They respond to being, to presence, to alignment, to the frequency of the soul that trusts even when there is no reason to. That is faith, that is surrender, that is the condition where protection becomes active, evident, and permanent. You will begin to notice that when you live from that place, you need fewer words and see more results. The things you used to beg for now find you without striving. The warnings come early, the detours appear before disaster, the wisdom arrives before the mistake, the opportunities appear before you even know you're ready. And all of this is not a reward for effort. It's the natural result of living in divine trust. It is not about deserving, it is about aligning. And anyone can align at any time, no matter their past. Even if you've walked through fire, even if you've made choices from fear, even if you've turned away from truth, none of it disqualifies you, because divine protection is not reactive, it is redemptive. It weaves every failure into a thread of strength. It turns every regret into a revelation. The angels are not counting your mistakes, they are counting your steps, making sure that even when you wander, you don't get lost. That even when you fall, you are not forsaken. The path may twist, but it is never abandoned. And this is what gives you the audacity to live with boldness, not recklessness, to speak with authority, not ego, to walk into rooms knowing you carry something greater than yourself, not because of status, but because of spiritual awareness. You are not just a body, you are a carrier of divine purpose, and that purpose is protected, even when you forget the assignment. The whispers you hear when the world is loudest, that's not your imagination. That's them reminding you who you are. The heaviness that lifts after prayer, that's not coincidence. That's them responding to your return to peace. The door that opens without force, the moment that aligns without effort, the burden that lifts without warning, these are all signs. You are not alone, you never were. Every divine assignment comes with divine assistance. You are not expected to carry it alone. The calling on your life is too great to be left unguarded. That's why heaven has marked you. That's why angels are on assignment, not to flatter you, but to finish what was written. And your only role is to walk in the truth of it, to stop waiting for evidence and start living from essence, to walk through the world as one who is divinely backed. You don't need to convince others. You don't need to prove your favor. You don't need to post your miracles for them to be real. Your life will speak for itself. Your peace will preach louder than your words. Your presence will carry a frequency that unsettles what is false and comforts what is true. And when people ask you what changed, you won't have to explain. You'll simply know. It was never just you walking through the storm. It was never just you making the turn. It was never just you finding your way. It was them, a sign before time, dispatched by design, moving in rhythm with your soul. And now that you know, now that you remember, you can stop worrying about the how. The how is handled, the way is made, the help is near. And everything that is unfolding in your life, even the parts you don't understand yet, is under divine surveillance. You are not being overlooked, you are being covered, not from afar, but up close, closer than breath, closer than thought. This is why you can rest, this is why you can exhale, because what you cannot see is still working, what you do not know is still being orchestrated, what you have not planned is still being prepared, and every piece of it is guarded. Every step is protected. Every detail is accounted for. You are not a wandering soul. You are a watched one. And those watching are not idle. They are mighty. They are swift. They are wise. They are present. And now your job is not to worry. It is to stay in alignment. Not to chase, but to dwell. Not to strive, but to believe. Let your spirit be still enough to hear, soft enough to feel, strong enough to follow. Let your inner world be so anchored in truth that nothing external can shake you. Let the awareness of angelic protection be your daily state, not an occasional feeling, and watch as everything around you begins to mirror the safety within. Because the truth is, there are no ordinary days when you are divinely protected. What seems like a simple walk to the store, a casual conversation, a delayed flight, a changed plan, these are all places where the hand of heaven is moving. You are never truly aware of how much is happening around you, on your behalf, without your conscious participation. But make no mistake, heaven is always active. The angels are always present, and their movements are not random, they are strategic, ordered by divine intelligence to maintain the integrity of your purpose. So when you feel the urge to delay your journey by 5 minutes, honor it. When you suddenly lose interest in something you once pursued obsessively, trust that. When a door closes, when a relationship ends, when a job disappears, don't just mourn the loss, seek the pattern. Because protection is not always sweet. Sometimes it feels like disruption, sometimes it looks like chaos, but within it, the divine is moving, breaking what cannot hold you, closing what cannot grow you, removing what cannot go with you. And that is protection in its highest form. Not just safety, but sanctification. Not just preservation, but preparation. Every moment is layered. What you see is the surface, but beneath it, angels are placing the right person on your path, removing the wrong voices from your circle, rerouting delays into divine setups. The invisible is always active, always responding to the tone of your soul. That's why inner peace is not just a nice feeling, it is an alignment signal. It tells the heavens you are ready, you are listening, you are trusting, and in that trust, doors open that no man can shut. Some people wonder why others seem to live with such ease, with such divine flow, with such favor that doesn't match their effort. But it's not about effort, it's about state. They have stepped into the awareness of the unseen. They don't fight for miracles, they expect them. They don't panic in uncertainty, they know protection walks before them. And so the angels move swiftly, unhindered by fear or doubt. They move on faith, they move on assumption, they move on spiritual posture. That is why the greatest shift is not in the world, but in you. When you stop thinking you are vulnerable and start knowing you are invincible, not because of ego, but because of essence, then your life begins to mirror the truth you've embraced. You do not have to chase protection. You do not have to plead for safety. You only need to abide in awareness. That awareness is your armor. It clothes you in an invisible covering. And even when the enemy plots, it cannot prosper, for the angels already stand between you and the strike. Have you not wondered why the attacks never broke you completely? Why the loss didn't finish you? Why the betrayal didn't silence you? It is because you are surrounded by what the eye cannot see. Because even when you forgot to pray, your spirit was still protected. Even when you wavered in faith, your assignment remained intact. This is why you are still here, not by luck, not by strength, but by divine mercy carried on angelic wings. And now more than ever, you are being called to remember what's true beneath the noise, to remember what's constant beneath the change, to remember that the invisible is more powerful than the visible, and that the kingdom you belong to is not of this world. You are not here to merely survive, you are here to reign, to manifest, to create. But you cannot do that while walking in fear. You cannot do that while waiting for signs. You must become the sign. You must walk as the proof that the unseen is real. This is the secret the awakened soul lives by, that what protects you is not behind you, it's ahead of you. What shields you is not reactive, it is proactive. And what guards you is not weak, it is divine intelligence in motion. So when you feel led to move, move. When you feel pulled to pause, pause. When the way doesn't make sense to your logic, trust the deeper knowing. That knowing is the voice of the divine. That knowing is how the angels speak. They do not shout. They don't always rescue you from the fire. Sometimes they simply walk through it with you. Sometimes they let the walls fall so you can be rebuilt on stronger grounds. Sometimes they close every door you're begging to open, because what's on the other side would delay your purpose. And the more you surrender to that reality, the more peace you will feel, even in uncertainty. Because you will realize it's not your job to understand everything. It's your job to trust the one who does. And trust, when pure, brings rest. Not laziness, not inaction, but the kind of stillness that knows movement is happening whether you see it or not. The kind of confidence that knows you are safe whether the road is smooth or shaking beneath your feet. Because angels don't report to your calendar. They operate by heaven's timeline. And when you let go of needing to control the when, you step into alignment with the how. And the how is always miraculous. There are breakthroughs already in motion. There are answers already on the way. There are battles already won on your behalf that you won't even know about until years later, when you look back and realize something held me, something covered me, something kept me from the edge. That something was never a thing, it was a presence, it was a force. It was being, sent by God's own authority to watch over the unfolding of your life. And now you are awakening to this, not as a concept, but as a conviction, not as a belief, but as a lived reality. The more you dwell in it, the more it will express itself through your experiences. The more you yield to it, the more clarity you will have. Because protection isn't just about being saved from harm. It's about being aligned with heaven's intention. It's about being brought into harmony with your true path. And every time you resist fear, every time you choose trust, every time you live as though you are protected, you give heaven permission to move freely in your life. So don't wait for another sign, don't wait for a feeling, don't wait for someone to confirm what your spirit already knows. Begin now. Begin to live as if the unseen is real, because it is. Begin to walk as though heaven is involved in every detail, because it is. Begin to believe that angels are not faraway stories. They are present, help, here and now, moving with precision, with purpose and with love. So now, walk forward, not with hesitation, but with holy certainty. You are not guessing your way through life, you are guided. You are not fending off chaos alone, you are defended by forces far greater than your eyes can perceive. The angels of God have been charged to keep you, to lift you, to carry you, not once, but always. Let this truth saturate your mind. Let it steady your heart. Let it become the atmosphere you move in. For when you live from this awareness, you do not fear what's ahead. You recognize that every step is watched, every moment is guarded, and every outcome is already aligned. You are not alone. You are surrounded. You are sealed in divine protection. Now live like it.